Hello guys, welcome to my channel. In this lesson, I am going to show you how you can find complex roots of quadratic equations, and I have two examples here to work on. So let's go. And I'm looking at this equation, and I'm thinking that it is prime, meaning that I will not be able to factor. All right, I can't solve by factorization, so I can solve this problem here using completing the square method or the quadratic formula. So what I'm going to do here is just go ahead and use quadratic formula in the variable x. So minus b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac over 2a. All right, so let's go ahead and find out what a, b, and c would be. Going to the equation, I know the coefficient of x squared is 1. That means a is 1. And I can look at the coefficient of x is -2. That means b is -2. And the constant term is 5. That means you have c is 5. All right, we're going to go ahead and substitute into this formula, and then that will give x equal to negative b would be negative of -2, yes, plus or minus. So we have to be extra careful when you have double negatives. So b is -2, and I'm using my parentheses just to make sure. And then I'm going for A now. A is 1, so I'm going to use 1 for A, and I'm going to plug in 5 for C, and I'm going to divide all of that by 2 times 1, because A is 1. All right, and simplifying further, I know that negative times negative is positive, so I'm going to get positive 2 plus or minus, negative 2 all to the squared will be 4. And then minus 4 times 1 times 5 is going to be negative 16. Negative 20, my bad, negative 20, and then I'm going to divide by 2. All right, from here, I am looking at simplifying to get 2 plus or minus the square root of 4 minus 20 is going to be negative 16, and I will divide by 2, which is equal to, that means I'm getting x, the roots, to be equal to 2 plus and minus. I know this is the square root of negative 16, which means it will be a complex number, and I'm going to need to introduce I. So I know the square root of 16 is 4, and because you have negative 16, you have to introduce your I and attach that to 4. Cool. And then I'm going to divide by 2. All right, looking at what I have here, I am going to separate the real parts from the imaginary parts. So which means 2 over 2 plus and minus 4i over 2. You notice that this is just the reversed form of what you would get when you have a uh, like fraction. So what I'm doing here is just cutting the fraction in half, making the real parts go with the denominator and also making the imaginary parts go with the denominator. So this is what I'm getting. So that finally my result will be x is equal to 2 times 2 is 1, and we have plus and minus 4i divided by 2, that will be 2i. So meaning that the roots of this equation will be x equal to 1 plus 2i, or x is equal to 1 minus 2i. So those will be the roots of this equation. This is good. All right, and we're going to go to the second equation right here. So again, we're going to use the quadratic formula. So we know that here a is 3. From here, oh no, this is one mistake I can make. Yes. All right, it's good that I made this mistake so that you all can also learn from that. So I am going to take this away. And I'm going to look at my equation first. This is not in standard form. So example 1 was already in standard form because it's set to 0. And this is not in standard form because it's not set to 0. So what we're going to do here is to do some combining like terms. So first, maybe I'm going to subtract x from both sides. Subtract x, all right? And I'm going to cross this x out. And I am going to combine these parts. And I'm going to get 3x squared plus 1x plus 3 equal to 1. Then I will still do one more thing. I am going to subtract 1 from both sides, and then I'm going to cross this out, and I'm going to combine this and get 2 out of that. So writing backwards, it means this is what I'm going to be getting in standard form. Good. So now I am ready to make my substitution into the quadratic formula. So from here, I know that A will be 3 and B will be 1 because that coefficient there is just invisible, but we know it is going to be 1. And we know that C will be positive 2. All right, and we're good to go. So I am going to substitute now into that giant formula. Okay, and I am going to get B is 1. So that means I get negative 1. I'm just substituting right here. Plus or minus the square root of B squared again is 1. I'm going to wrap it up with a square minus 4 times, use parentheses, I prefer to use parentheses. A is 3, yes, again, A is 3, and C is exactly 2. Plug in 2 over there. I'm going to divide that by 2 times A, and A is still 3. Okay, so moving forward, I get negative 1 plus and minus, or plus or minus, the square root of 1 to the squared is 1, and I get negative 4 times 3 times 2, and that's going to be 4 times 3 is 12, and 12 times 2 is 24. I get negative 24. And I am going to divide all of that by 2 times 3, which is 6. Okay, I get x is equal to, I'm going to bring my negative 1 plus and minus the square root of, if I simplify this part here, I get negative 23. And I'm going to divide all of that by 6. All right, so let us not worry because even we can see that the complex number is not a perfect square, so we don't worry. So we just keep going. So we have negative 1 plus and minus, and we know the square root of negative 23 would help us introduce the imaginary unit because we have a negative sign right here. So that means we'll just write that as square root of 23, whatever that is, and then we'll just multiply that with I and divide that by 6. So this is how far we can go in quotient form, but we still need to write this in standard form, good or bad, even though the expression is not looking very clean. So this is what I'm going to do. I am going to separate this fraction and break that in two, just like I did here. All right, just like I did over there. It will be negative 1 over 6 plus and minus the square root of 23i all by 6. So this is what I'm getting for the roots of x, and I can just separate them to get my final result. So which means x is either negative 1 over 6 plus the square root of 23 over 6i, or you can use comma, x will be equal to negative 1/6. This time you have minus, and that will be 23 over 6i. So you can see how bad the roots are, but this is how you can leave your answers. I hope you have learned from here. I hope you can do more. Continue to try and challenge yourself, and I'll see you in the next video.